Welcome to the Channel Chat podcast. Proudly sponsored by Convergent Technology.
Hello, I'm Marc Sumner, host of the Channel Chat podcast show, and today I have the pleasure of Daren Finney, Senior Vice President of Global Channels at Mitel, in the virtual studio today because, Darren, you have cancelled my lunch meeting today. I don't know if it was raining because you have got COVID.
I have.
How have you got it? How did you get that?
I'm sorry, Mark. I mean, it's day 12 for me of COVID. I'd hope by now I'd be testing negative. I'd hope by now I'd be able to get out of the house, particularly because I've given it to everybody in the house. So I needed I needed some space. But we did a recording for our partner conference a couple of weeks ago, and it was in a studio in London. And clearly it was a breeding ground for COVID. I think 7 of us came away, unfortunately, with it. And I seem to be the one that's dragging on with the most. So apologies, we can't be there in person, Mark. But next time, I'm hoping I can join you in the studio.
You'll come in the studio. As I did say to you offline, we're getting a complete refurb here. We're getting a new podcast studio done next month. So hopefully the future guests will have a more of a better experience than not doing the virtual ones in the new studio. So we'll definitely reassess that and do lunch sometime in the summer.
Well, having done the studio recently, I'm expecting hair and makeup when I come in as well, Mark. I need it.
Yeah. Oh dear. Darren, I want to kick off, and I asked Angela Whitty when she came in last week because I was actually shocked that she moved after 30 years to another company. And I was like, I really pressed on that decision. And I actually asked her, which I want to ask you as well. Did COVID have an influence on your decision to move? And what I mean by that is lots of people out in the channel would have said, Darren's got a good job. He's got a great job at Citrix. He's not going to leave. He's working for Lee. He's got the channel program. He's well known, etc., etc. And you left, and you left when probably a company was doing quite well. So talk me through your thought process of why you decided to change jobs and why Mitel.
Yeah, no, happy to. And it's funny, I heard Angela's podcast, and I saw so many parallels in what Angela said to my own experiences. I think just before we go there, point of clarification: working with Lee, not for Lee. And he was one of the reasons why I had to leave. I hope he doesn't listen to this.
Yeah, but I'm going to tag him on this. Make sure he hears that.
So I guess for me, if I think about my motivation to move, it was just these opportunities don't come along very often, Mark. And again, like similar to Angela, nothing was fundamentally broken at Citrix. I had a great career with some great people, but when I think about Mitel, and the reason I was attracted to Mitel is they're very partner centric. So for me, as a worldwide partner leader, you're pushing on an open door. So almost all of the business is indirect. We at Mitel are very, very engaged with our partners. So I saw that as a massive opportunity to come into an organization where my role hadn't existed in the past and really add significant value. I guess the other part as well that attracted me is it was a position at our executive leadership level. So that for me, that was a place where I hadn't had as much exposure in the past. So for me, it was great to see that not only channel was important to the business, that there was an opportunity to come in and apply some of my skills and experience to get us to that next level. But as importantly was being on the executive leadership team means that channel is important to the business. They're listening. It gives me a voice. It means that I can represent what we need to do as a indirect strategy directly to the leadership and to the board as we go forward.
Was the technology an influence? And what I mean by that is when you're looking at a job down and you're considering a move, do you look at the company and think they've got a really established channel, they're real channel centric, they're really into our partners, and the technology is it doesn't really matter? Or is it the technology in the company and I can actually shape the channel partners? Because some companies say they do channel, they're not really committed to it. And other companies might have the best technology, but they've got a real slick customer-centric channel program that you could influence. So what was your decision process in actually analysing that opportunity?
Yeah, and you know me, I'm not a techie. I'm about as technical as Lego. So from that perspective, you know, I kind of, but what is important is you got to believe in the company, you got to believe in the technology and the product strategy. And I do, you know, if I think about, and again, it's probably just worth explaining a little bit about Mitel.
Yeah.
You know, Mitel is a UC, Unified Communications Organization. We are 50, we're 48 years old, nearly 50 years old. There's not many organizations you step into where you talk to the employees and the partners, and they've got many decades of tenure. You know, that in itself in our industry is quite remarkable.
It is, yeah.
But yeah, if I think about our mission is to deliver flexible, future-proof communication solutions that support each customer's needs today and their ambitions for the future. You know, and I guess today, you know, you mentioned COVID, what the future looks like. None of us really know. So to kind of be there at the forefront of unified comms and how that turns up for our customers, you know, I see as being critical for our customers' future success. You know, our vision is really around how we believe great communications enables organizations to thrive. And we're really structuring that, you know, through our customer lifecycle management. So for me, as I started to dig in and understand a little bit more about Mitel, our mission, our vision, our strategy, I became more excited. And, you know, so for me, technology probably came second.
Yeah.
But as I went through that, you know, you have to believe in it. If you don't believe in it, then fundamentally, what do you tell customers and partners when you meet with them? And they say, well, why do you work for this organization?
Yeah. And for you, what does a good channel program look like from a, you know, market trends, the partner experience, the customer, how and because you're obviously coming into there and delivering your own message and making sure that partner message is getting out to the partner community. So what does a good partner model look like?
Yeah. So, you know, think about what excited me about this role. It was everything I said. No one was in this role before I joined, you know, but we were very much in direct focus. But the indirect strategy is really up till now been delivered by the theaters or by the countries. So my role is really focused on, you know, the vision, the strategy, how we drive standardization, operationalize the overall channel and the overall programs. So when I think about how we do that, you know, we've touched on this before, Mark, you know, every partner has multiple vendors, you know, so trying to understand the complexity of any one vendor over another is a challenge. So start with the beginning part, keep it simple.
Yeah.
Second thing is, you know, the secret's in the name, partnership. It needs to be a partnership. So you need to be transparent. There needs to be trust. And you really need to try and make sure that you lay out exactly what it is that you need from a partner and what the partner needs from you. And then jointly, how you take that to market and how you monetize. So I guess since I've joined, you know, what I've really been looking at is how do we lay out, you know, business planning is fundamental. And, you know, I'm sure for half the listeners, they hear me say business planning, their eyes start to roll. Like, oh, here we go. And, you know, we've all been there, I think, when a manager's come to us and said, I need you to go and do a business plan. And you do it, and you kind of, you know, here you go, there's my business plan, and it goes in the top drawer until he asks again. And then you kind of dust it off, and you've got it back out. So for me, what I want from our teams is that we work with our partners to make sure that the business plan is real. And what I mean by that is, you know, it needs to be a joint business plan. It needs to have our fingerprints and the partner's fingerprints on it around what is it they need from Mitel and what is it we need from the partner. And then how do we build that into a plan and then make sure that we go and execute against that? And then we have weekly cadences to say, hey, you were going to do this. Have you delivered on that? I was going to go and do that. And you can hold one another accountable to go and deliver the joint outcomes. And then behind that, from a programmatic perspective, how you monetize it. So how do you make sure that if they achieve those outcomes, they can earn the rich rewards that they need, obviously, to deliver for their business?
You mentioned the word there, partnerships. How do you feel now? And you there's not a partnership here, Darren, because you're not in my bloody studio, because you could have been here in person. But
it's because we got a partnership. I've not given you COVID.
how are you getting that message delivered now? Because pre-COVID, floor walking, going out of meetings, partner program, partner events, and you mentioned a partner event that you've done and how you've actually got COVID. Are you starting to see more of that and that going back, or this hybrid working and you working there at home now? Can you really have a real good partnership via platforms?
It's a good question. I mean, it's built on trust. It has to be built on trust fundamentally. And I think if you can build that plan, if you can build that structure and then start consistently delivering on your say do, doing what you said you're going to do, then I think you can really build that partnership, remotely. There is still the need, obviously, I think, and it's becoming less. It depends upon which country I talk to, but in some instances, I'm still having conversations with partners and they're trying to manage their own logistics of bringing some of their workforce back. The last thing they want is a vendor getting in the middle of it and turning up and sitting at a hot desk and trying to get around everybody to update them on their own technologies. So from that perspective, we're respecting our partners' decisions as to whether they want us in their offices or not. But we are starting to see now that more and more partners are opening their doors, they are engaging more, yes, and actively trying to get us to come back into their business. So it's kind of, and I think it will be for a while now, Mark. I think there always will be now that more hybrid approach. So for me, that's why it becomes even more important that we can build that credibility, because some of that does come very similar to what we spoke about. If I think about the partner events that I've hosted or been at in the past, much of what you learn and much of how you build the rapport in a relationship is done after the keynote on stage. You kind of come off stage, you'll meet people, you'll be in the bar at 2 a.m. That's where you're building the relationships and the trust and the credibility, not from the powerful messaging you've given on your keynote. And that's why I think it's so hard at the moment to try and get that message across to your partner community. But then equally, you need to back that up by making sure that whether you're face-to-face or remote, you're delivering on what you said you would.
How would you, or how are you, Darren, creating a successful hybrid environment yourself? Whether it's whether your partners are now potentially opening the door, they've got their own challenges of getting people back in or hiring remote people and managing that workforce and got the data to make sure they're actually being effective. How are you doing it for your own staff, your own company? Because you've got different countries, you've got people working at home, flats, houses, Lee from his garden when I last saw him. So how's it happen? How do you create that environment where you think we've got one message, it's collaborative, managerial, we're being successful? Because to me, it's a minefield, because for us, we're not a large organization like Mitel, but we are an office-based culture, and we are now being flexible and giving people, 1 day, maybe 2 days if they need it. But we are really wanting to get people back into the office because of collaboration, because of ideas, and obviously we're a recruitment company. But I look at your organization, I'm thinking, lots of employees. How do you keep them engaged? How do you keep them happy? How do you keep them, excited about the opportunity? It must be a minefield, Darren. So, how do you do it? How are you trying to do it for Mitel?
Yeah, and I think firstly you've got to accept and respect that everybody's different, as you've touched on. I think I'm pretty fortunate. I've got a separate office away from the home. I can shout and scream if I need to, and not have to worry about anybody in the house, or vice versa. Not everybody has that. I do recognize, as you say, some people might be stuck in their flat with the entire family and young children, or homeschooling. So I think making sure that you can offer your teams that flexibility around their working schedule and their working hours. And the way I've tried to do that is be really clear on what good looks like, what it takes to get an A. What are the 4 or 5 things that I need you to go do, and then help you to make sure that you can go deliver those. And some of that might just be simply on saying, okay, well, back to the planning. This is how you build a good plan. This is what you need to do. This is what good looks like. So you're kind of teaching them and helping them to be successful. And then you're setting them up so that they can then, within their own time and their own personal circumstances, go deliver and go be successful. I mean, you're right. We do have a hybrid approach at the moment. Our offices are starting to open up now as well. So I think it's important as well that people get an opportunity to meet face to face and feed off of one another. I know these last 12 days I've been going crazy. Other than waving to the postman from a distance, I've not seen anybody.
That's the only partnership you've got, the postman.
Yeah.
Your letters.
So he only brings me bills. I don't really want to see him. So from that perspective, I agree. I think that giving people that balance and that freedom, because some people don't want to come in the office and aren't still comfortable with coming in the office, and others really thrive on it. They need to be in the office on a regular basis, to your point. So it's kind of just setting it up so they all understand what they need to go do, and then giving them the opportunity to succeed.
Darren, I'm not going to be popular by saying this, but you mentioned there about people not being comfortable coming back in the office. Now, not going to be popular. I'm seeing that now as an excuse now to not basically go into work and not potentially work as hard at home. Now, I'm not saying people don't work hard at home. Of course, I'm not. But when people say they're not comfortable coming back in, how do you then create that culture? If you are an office-based culture, for example, I look at someone like West Coast. I like to say they've got a big company, they've got lots of staff, they're trying to create that environment. If staff are actually saying, "Oh, I'm not comfortable coming back in the office," how do you manage that? Because you've got some people saying this, some people are coming back in the office culture. How then do you get everyone bought on the same song sheet? Because I think it's a real difficult problem. Because when I hear someone say, "I'm not comfortable coming back," why? What? Because of COVID, or and excuse me, being blunt, is it because you're just lazy? You just don't want to do the job anymore?
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I had that attitude towards this event. We're doing the event, and some people say, "No, I'm not comfortable coming to the studio." I can see why now. Yeah. So, but I think you're right. I mean, I don't know how we fully sell for that. I mean, for us, the most powerful thing was walking the sales floor. Yeah. I think when you can go into a partner and you can touch so many salespeople in a day, that's when you can really start to create mind share and influence them selling your technologies and understanding the value of that. So it's, don't get me wrong, I'd much rather see people on a sales floor engaged. But I think it comes back to that part. One of the things that I'm overly rotating on now is, it comes back to that: how do we operationalize, build that business management system so that you can measure people's performance and people's productivity regardless of where they are. So if somebody isn't comfortable, okay, I accept and respect you're not comfortable today. Let's try and get there, but this is what I need you to go and deliver on. And if they can deliver on that, obviously remotely, then cut them some slack. So I do agree. I think it'll be lovely to get everybody back to the office, and I'm hoping we will get there sooner rather than later. But I think in the meantime, arguably, even when I was in the office, if I had something I really need to focus on and really needed to kind of give a lot of attention to, I'd rather do that from home. So I deliberately schedule a day in the diary where I'd be at home rather than the office, because Mark, I don't know about you, I'm like a moth. I'm constantly distracted. I'll gravitate towards the brightest light that's in the office. So from that perspective, it's great to have that time where I can just be at home, away from everything, and just nail it. So I do see a balance.
Yeah, and Darren, again, controversial view. I look at it. That's fine for senior hires. That's fine for people that are established in their roles. When I hear people, a fresh grad, "Oh, I'm not comfortable coming in the office." Right. How are you going to learn to do the job if you're at home? Now, I know there's remote training, and I just can't see it. So when I hear that partners, and I've heard it recently, partners are having, 2 or 3 grads, "Oh, I'm not comfortable coming in the office, etc. I'm going to work from home today." Most people, owners, businesses, and partners are looking at them thinking, "You just don't want to do the job. You just don't want to learn. You just don't want to do the job." And now, I'm right, cut them some slack. I do agree with it, and maybe I'm a bit old school with it, but I am seeing a lot of that when I'm thinking people abusing the word hybrid working for basically non-working. That's
Yeah, mate, talking of abuse, you're going to get a lot of abuse on LinkedIn and Twitter a little bit later when this comes out.
yeah.
But no, and I see your point. I mean, firstly, if you're right, if it's a grad, if it's someone who they've got to learn, how do they learn? It's the same as if you're in a sales role, you've got to go meet a customer. So I agree in both those scenarios. But again, I think there are ways, and this is what we need to adjust to.
Yeah.
How do we have that? I mean, hybrid is everyone says, but I think we need to think about how can you support people in a hybrid world. So that's where it comes back to, how I'm, we spoke about it, how I'm trying to build up the employee experience is by saying, hey, let's be really clear. This is what I expect from you, and this is what good looks like. And if they're kind of delivering on good, then
so
but I do agree. I mean, fundamentally, yeah, we can't all hide at home now for the next. Can you imagine a grad 40 years time still not been out and met anybody in the real world?
Yeah,
that's not going to fly.
And I'm looking at the companies. If you have got those systems where you've demonstrated what good looks like. How do I get an A? What am I expecting? And you can monitor that. That's great. I'm worried about the companies that aren't sophisticated as that, haven't got the technology to monitor it or embrace it, and are struggling to get people back into the offices because whether it's they're worried or whatever it is, it can't go on like that. It just can't go on. And hopefully technology can evolve and make it like UCC to make it easier. But I do see a lot of companies, not just in the IT channel, but a lot of companies out there who haven't got the monitoring tools or haven't got the platforms to be able to monitor what good looks like. So their person goes home and it's just like finger in the air. Well, hopefully they'll do something, and then they're monitoring the results the next day. But hopefully technology is enabling that to do so, because I'm hearing some horror stories out there in the moment. With almost, when you said it's like people not wanting to come back, it's like you've got to sort of come back a bit. Some people just don't want to work at all in the office, full stop. They just don't want to come back. But hopefully the world will get back to normal and we'll start doing that. You mentioned there about employee experience. Now, Darren, I'd like to challenge you on this because you have these, you've done these posts and you seem very passionate about it. I want to know what initiatives you've done in Mitel, or you're doing in Mitel, to give the employee experience. And is it, and you're not going to like this, is it just a buzzword to sort of like band around? Because I hear a lot of companies start saying, "Oh, we're really worried about the employee experience." It's like, what does that mean? What does the employee experience mean? So what does it mean for you, and what are you doing at Mitel about it?
Trying my hardest, Mark. I mean, you can, to be honest, if you don't address employee experience, they are your most valuable asset. It's your people, and you can't take them for granted, because, like any valuable asset, it's got a choice and it will choose to leave if you don't make sure that you're providing a positive experience. So, 6 months into Mitel, and it's a core focus to me, as I say. And what I'm trying to do by lifting that employee experience is really around the things that I touched on, around how do you lay out what I think. I remember going through an organization where we changed the structure of the organization, and I remember there was a whole group of rock star sales guys that then came across to become channel account managers, and these rock star sales guys that then moved across to become channel account managers, within 6 months their managers were coming back saying they're useless, they're rubbish, we need to get rid of them, we need to sack them. And you're like, that can't be right. You can't go from being a rock star to them changing roles and not being successful. So you start to dig into it, and what was apparent was they weren't clear on the role. They hadn't trained them on how they needed to go and succeed in their role. And they hadn't set those objectives around, this is what good looks like, and this is what you need to go and deliver, and this is how we're going to measure the outcome. As soon as they put that framework around those individuals, it gave them the opportunity to then go, right, I get it. I understand now what I need to do. I understand what good looks like, and I'm going to go do it. Suddenly they all became rock stars again. And I guess for me, I'm not taking for granted anything that's gone before within our organization. And what I want to do is I want to make sure that we're really clear on how we're going to lay out what a good channel account manager or a distribution account manager looks like, what they need to do, how they go and deliver, so that it can then create that positive experience. They understand what our vision and strategy is. They understand how their role directly has an impact on that vision and strategy and the contribution that they're making. And that to me is really what I'm trying to focus on now in the first phase of really how we start to deliver that employee experience and make it a positive one.
We hope you're enjoying this episode of the Channel Chat podcast. And now a few words from our sponsor.
Channel Chat is brought to you by Convergent Technology. The Convergent team is made up of experienced and innovative IT professionals. Our mission is to disrupt the traditional reseller market, and we want the most aspirational salespeople to join our team as part of our journey. We know IT sales has a bad rep, so we've created a rewarding culture with the best remuneration and career progression in the industry. Check out convergenttechnology.com for more info.
I love that answer, Darren. It's a good answer because I hear a lot of companies. I'm not going to name them. I'm not going to shut them out. And again, I'll always get in trouble for saying this. Normally, it's like this. Here's your target. Here's the number of partners you've got to look after, or what revenue we've got. Go and speak to marketing if you want any colouring in done and any sort of fancy case studies. If you've got a problem, go and ask Darren, knock on his door and, he'll help with any big deals. Apart from that, get on with it. Get on with it. If you want any training, Darren might come and do a session with you. And that's about it. And I see 60, 70% of companies doing that still now, all the time. So does that mean that's a bad candidate experience? Or because, again, the initiatives you said, I'm thinking, do you know what? Probably don't even do that in my own company. I'm thinking, yeah, do I tell them what good looks like? Maybe I'm not so hot on that. Maybe I need to look at that. Do I set out the expectations, etc.? Not really. What I have is metrics, KPIs, supportive environment to hopefully to be successful. But it wasn't as clear as what you said. So my question is, how can companies make it crystal clear like that? And why don't they do it? Why do they just sort of say, here's the marketing department, here's your manager, go and do your target, let's see how you get on with these partners?
Yeah. So just before we go there, more abuse coming your way. Marketing doing the colouring in.
I say that all the time.
Fantastic.
The colouring in department. So
it's the grads and the marketing teams now that are coming for you, Mark. I think back to your question. I don't think we're there, by the way, yet. It's again, I guess. In my 6 months at Mitel, it's like the first 3 months, you say very little. You're trying to understand, you're trying to learn the organization and say, is that normal? Is that me? And then obviously now I'm past that first 3 months. Now I'm starting to lay out my vision and strategy and approach. That's going to take a while. I think, I've probably successfully communicated that to maybe 20% of the audience.
Right.
And again, I think it comes through, was it communication? You need to say it 7 times before it starts to sink in. So I do think it's constant repetition is what we need to do. Because you're right. I mean, don't get me wrong. We have KPIs, we have targets. So everyone understands what their KPIs and their targets are. But what's not clear to them is how they achieve those KPIs, how they can go and smash those targets. And that's a piece that I want to over-rotate on to say, okay, this is how we need to set you up to be successful. This is what you need to do so that they feel that, and it may be in some instances, go, look, I've got that. I'm fine. I understand how to do demand generation or build campaigns. I don't need the colouring in department. I can kind of do that part. Or it may be, yeah, I do. So how do I do that? And that's what we're trying to do at the moment as well with our customer lifecycle management is that, if I think about our partners as a great example, how do we, it's not only your employees, it's your partners. So customer lifecycle management is really about how you're going to have business conversations with your customers about what they're doing with your technology, how they sweat that technology, how they get more value from it. So what we're doing to support that is firstly, we're producing data packs for the incumbent partner so they can understand where their customer is. Have they got dormant customer base? Are they active on software assurance? Have they got a propensity to move subscription or cloud, be that private or public? And then you can start to stimulate the conversation because you're aware through the analytics where the customer might be in their decision. Once you've done that, then what you can do is you can supply them with the playbooks, where to play, how to win, the campaigns, the content as well. So they can then go and take that to their customers and have the conversation about the journey that they're on. And then the final part of that really is around the resources as well. So perhaps they aren't competent in a dormant customer. You know, they're dormant for a reason. I don't know how to reactivate them. So we've then got our BDRs that will then come alongside the partner and work with them to target their customer, to talk to them directly and try and reactivate them. So there's a great example there in terms of not only what we're doing with our employees, but how that extends to our partners around how we're trying to help them build that end-to-end approach and really enable them. Ultimately, their KPI is to drive more business, you know, to kind of move across the customer lifecycle management. But if you just lay that out there and leave them to their own devices, I guess you're going to get a mixed experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Great answer again, Darren. You know, if you have any problems leaving Mitel, you can come and run a recruitment company for me and put that out to the channel partners. You'd be great doing that. On the point of communication, Darren, you gave a very slick answer, and I thought, you know what? Yeah, it does sound clear, and you've set it out there. How much communication do you do as a leader to your team? You mentioned that, you know, 7 points, keep on the message. Are you giving daily messages to little different teams? Are you giving town halls? Are you doing review meetings? Or, you know, how are you constantly giving that communication? Because the answer you gave, I was thinking, yeah, okay, I could get behind that. Yeah. But I'm also a salesperson myself, and I'm thinking by next week I've forgotten that.
Yeah. Yeah.
How are you keep on delivering that message? Is it constant town halls? Is it constant communication? How do you do it as a leader?
So not enough. I mean, if I think about where we're in March, if I think about the messages that I've given out to our teams at Mitel, you know, I've done 2 email communications that I can think of talking about the importance of CLM and what we're doing from a programmatic perspective. I've done a sales, an SLT discussion. I've done a town hall. We had our field kickoff. We've done our partner kickoff. So 5 times, but 5 discretely different audiences. Maybe I've captured, you know, one of them 2 or 3 times. So I need to keep that going, but equally, you don't want it to become noise. So it's making sure that each time as well, I'm reiterating on it. It's a bit more impactful. I've got a bit more to say rather than going, oh, it's Finney again. We've heard this, and they switch off. And it's, you know, I couldn't blame them. I get bored with hearing my voice. So who can blame them?
Oh dear, brilliant. Let's move on to a different topic, a topic that's hot at the moment, or in fact, it's been hot for 2 years throughout COVID, or even before COVID, really, around diversity in technology. Now, I looked at the Mitel, and you mentioned it too, the Mitel leadership team. I think there's 12 and there's 11 men and 1 woman, is right? How hard is it getting female talent into not just your organization, into the channel? Because, you know, when I get asked all the time, oh, can you bring diverse talent? Yeah. I'm desperately searching for good female talent, but they're not applying, or there's just not enough of them, or they're not coming into the industry, or they're not applying for promotions even. So how are you doing it? Because if someone looked at my time, they thought 11 middle-aged men maybe, and then 1 female, they'd think, well, they're certainly not cracked it, have they?
Yeah, you're right. We haven't got it right, and it's something that's very dear to my own heart. You know, I've got 3 daughters, 2 of which are already in the workplace, and 1 who just started reception this year. But that's a whole nother podcast, Mark. We could spend 45 minutes just talking about that one alone. So I guess with 3 daughters, it's something that occupies my mind regularly. You know, if I think about, I mean, there's a couple of things. Firstly, you know, there was Sheryl Sandberg, the COO of Facebook or Meta. She did a thing about why we have too many or too few women leaders in the industry. There was also the founder of Girls Who Code. She did something similar as well. And I think and they're both TED Talks. I liked them both on LinkedIn. So again, you'll see them in my activities. But the Girls Who Code founder, one of the things that she spoke about is she said men will apply for a job if they meet 60% of the criteria. For women, they will only apply for the job if they meet 100% of the criteria. And this was a study, I think it was Harvard or one of those that did this study a few years ago. And you think about that, and I think that's kind of what we see. You know, when I think about an opportunity when it comes up, there will be a sea of male candidates that all throw their names forward and go, "Yeah, I'll give it a go. I can do this.
I'll give it a go." Yeah.
Yeah, very, very rarely will you get the same, unless, you know, a female candidate really believes that they do have all of the criteria and all the attributes that are needed. So it's really difficult, I think, because of that. I mean, again, to the listeners, I'd encourage them to go back and listen to those two TED Talks, because I think they're both pretty powerful. You know, when I listened to them, I was like, do you know what, they're so true.
What do you think can be done about it? You know, I look at about it and think, well, there's 15% of women in technology. That's a small talent pool. Even smaller numbers in actual sales role. Obviously, there's other options, you know, marketing, customer services, operations, etc. But in IT sales, female women that want to do that, there's just not enough. And is there anything initiatives that we can do, or you think would help attract women to come into our industry? Because let's be honest, it's a well-paid industry. It's a great job. It's ever changing. It's almost bulletproof because it's constantly evolving. Yet it seems unpopular to come into.
Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, I think it's a good question, and one I probably don't have an articulate answer for, Mark. I mean, I think for us, what I need to consciously do, and I think what we all need to consciously do, is challenge one another. You know, challenge before we go and make that offer. Have we looked at every candidate? You know, just to make sure that you've gone through every CV and qualified everybody. And really, I think as well, it's, you know, and you'll hear this, it's kind of played out everywhere. It's really around, how do you remove those gender barriers and those unconscious bias? We all have them. You know, one of the things that I've tried to do is I tried to write down the list of what's needed, the skills, qualifications, and then start scoring them without the CV there, you know, consciously trying to do that so that you are trying to remove some of those unconscious bias that I think we all have in us.
Yeah.
Even though we probably don't admit to that. So I think it's hard, it's tough. And then equally, I think the motivation, you know, again, if you're aspiring and you look up to your leadership and see it's a male leadership team, you're like, well, I'll never get there because it's just a group of old men. And I think that's the other thing as well, is that, we really do need to start consciously making these changes. I can't see it happening overnight, you know, but I hope it happens in our career time. You know, we've got a few years left in us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, and I think there is some positive changes happening, and hopefully, slowly and surely, it will change. Moving on to my last little topic that I want to ask you, Darren, and I want it to be a bit of a quick fire questions with you, because you've hired a lot of people throughout your career. You're obviously going to be looking, I presume, looking at the talent you've got in Mitel, and at some point you'll be going to hire people again, or looking at hire people. So when you're interviewing, how can a candidate really impress Daren Finney?
Well, I guess the first one is really around, make your experience relevant to the role. You know, prove that you've read. I mean, it's so often, I guess there's a couple of things. Make the experience relevant. I mean, so often when I've been in an interview and they spoke about their experience, but they don't bring it back to the role that you're employing for. So I think that's really good when you can talk about what you've done and how it then becomes relevant for the role that you're being employed for. The other one that you'll be surprised how many candidates don't do this. Take a notepad and pen. Do some research. You know, you will be staggered the amount of people that don't do research. When you ask them about the company, they don't know or don't have an opinion. Why are you there? Is it just because it's a job? And then equally, if you don't turn up with a pen and paper, that kind of suggests that anything that you learn in that meeting isn't of value and isn't noteworthy. So take a notepad and pen as well with you. I think is always good. And then the other thing as well is I'd say always ask me if they've got any concerns. You know, an interview's two-way. It's not just about me selling myself to Mark because I want the job he's offering. It's about you selling yourself to them as well because they're talent and you want to bring them into your organization. So I'd say, you know, as you go through it, raise any concerns that you might have and qualify at the end. I love it when I get to the end of an interview and someone says to me, have I addressed everything that you need? Do you see me as being the right candidate for this role? It's fantastic. They're trying to close me. I love that. They'll never get an answer, but I love that.
Do you know what, Darren? Do you like candidates closing you? So, for instance, you know, I'm trying to get a job with Darren. It's like, Darren, you know, do you see me fitting in the culture? Is there any reservations you've got about me doing the role? Do you think I've got the right skill set? No, Mark, I think you're great. Great. Darren, would you give me a job today? Would you give me if someone asked you to close you, would you give me an answer or would you duck it or would you be offended that I've asked you?
I wouldn't be offended. I don't know if I'd close it that directly. My thinking is more around, have I addressed everything today? Is there anything that's stopping you considering me for the role? So I wouldn't expect you. Let's sign here. So what I want to do is I want them to leave that room knowing that they've addressed every one of the points that I had. There's no questions that are left open. And if there are, I've had an opportunity to say, look, Mark, I'm a bit concerned that I spoke to you about your sales experience. You didn't fully qualify that. And then it gives you an opportunity to go, oh, I'm sorry. Let me come back and restate so that I can just close that one out. So it's not a niggling thing in the back of your mind when you go make that decision. And so that's really what I'm looking for.
What about if they sort of say something like, you know, Darren, is there any reason they may be softer? I'll do it a bit softer.
You can't.
Yeah, you can't. I'll be like, Darren, thanks for the opportunity. You know, really enjoyed the meeting. Is there any reason that you wouldn't give me an offer today?
Yeah, and there's lots of reasons for that. I'd never commit to that anyway. So I think that, you know, again, back to that challenging one another when we're looking at diversity, I think you always need time to reflect. You need to go back and reflect. And the other thing as well is they won't be the only candidate. There'll be a bench of candidates that are kind of getting through to the short list. So from that perspective, you know, my retort to that is normally, well, look, you know, you're a strong candidate. Certainly you're in my final few, but I need to go back and I need to bench you against the rest of the candidates.
And I'll be like, do you know what? I don't want your job now. I don't like that answer. I don't want your job now. I'll go somewhere else. No.
Depends if you get to spend all your time working from home, Mark. Or offended my marketing department.
Yeah, dear, that's why I'd be unemployable. No one would give me a job. I had Neil Burton on the show, and I absolutely loved his answer to this. It's been brilliant. I've put the clip up so many times about
it was great.
About his funniest moment, and I want to ask you the same question. What is the funniest moment or the funniest thing that's happened to you in an interview, either as a hiring manager or a candidate, that when you were applying for a job?
I'll have to be careful with this one because I don't want to offend anybody that might be listening. But I was at a company and I was talking to someone that was in the business but was looking to do an assignment. So they were looking to join me in my country, and they were French. That's as much as I'm giving away. So there's always that language barrier anyway. So we were having the conversation about them coming on a 3-year assignment to work in the country that I was based in. I'm keeping this high level, that I was based in. And we were having a long conversation, but through the entire time, every time I spoke to them about the role and what I expected and how it was relevant to what they were doing in France at that time, they kept saying to me, yeah, but I need to work out, you know, my leaving plan, my leaving. And they kept coming back to, this is great, but I need to understand how it will work, what my leaving would look like. And I'm sat there, Mark, and I'm like, oh my goodness, you know, they're coming for 3 years and they're already thinking about the end and leaving. And in the end, I had to address it. And I'm like, listen, let's not think about when you're leaving. We need to think about if you're the right fit for the role and you're going to come in. He's like, and this guy, I've given the sex away. This guy was like, he's like, oh no. Where my living plan, where I will be living. where I will be. So I sat there for 30 minutes thinking, oh my goodness, this guy's already thinking about his next move before he's even started this one. The assignment is purely to move him on in the company, but it wasn't. It was his living plan, where he was bringing his family to live, not to leave. But yeah, that was a tricky moment for a while.
It sounds like the guy from, you know, that series Hello Hello, or is it Hello? The French guy comes in, it's like that. Oh, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Oh,
it was a bit, and interestingly, he moved to that country. I'm probably giving a bit more away now, and that was a good few years ago, and he's still there. He's still in that country, so he never left.
So yeah, he sorted out his
clearly worked out his living plan.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Darren, my last question. You know, you've been a fabulous guest. My last question for you: over the next 6 months, as we move out this, hopefully get working, what are you seeing the trends that are going to happen in the next 6 months? You know, where do you see Mitel going? Where do you see the partner community going? What's your sort of Mystic Meg view of the next 6 months?
So I think about the next 6 months, you know, I mean, you know, we spoke about hybrid. Hybrid is going to become as important as ever. So when I think about Mitel and how we deliver that, it's really about how do you create the same experience no matter where you are. Yeah. So the idea being is, you know, if I'm in the office and my office phone rings, I pick it up on my office desk. You know, I've got that office desk in the corner there. It's an IP phone, you know, I can have the same experience if somebody rings me here, and I can pick it up, or it can divert to my mobile, or it can divert to my desktop. So, and it comes back to the point we were raising earlier as well around, you know, how do you try and make the employee experience as positive as possible? It's trying to make sure it's as natural as possible. So you're able to enable them with as much as they would have in the office as when they're remote. So, and again, I guess that's one of my passions about UC as well, is that ability to offer that kind of, you know, something as simple as the phone. How do I make sure that experience is the same no matter where I am? And then how does that then integrate into how I have a video conference conversation or a contact center or whatever it might be? So I think for me, you know, hybrid's going to continue to be a massive thing for us in this industry as we go forward. I don't just think for the next 6 months. Yeah. So making sure that we as vendors and as partners are able to effectively support our customers with providing that, so that the experience is as seamless as possible. That's what.
And also as well, you know, it's educating those customers. You know, I look at myself as an end user. We might be going over to Ring Central, actually. Well, we are going over to Ring Central, and do you know what, Darren? I'm not ashamed to admit it. I didn't have a bloody clue what Ring Central. I knew the name, but I wasn't really sure on why I need it, because we were using our mobiles or landlines. But of course, you know, once COVID did hit, we had no disaster recovery plan, and it's only suddenly then you suddenly think, well, actually, we needed to do that. But what I do, I'm not concerned about now because I'm sorting it out. But what I am interested in is, are the partners educating their end users about that? And I'm talking to small, medium-sized businesses, companies like myself. You know, are they able to do that? Because I still see a lot of partner salespeople talk about kit, talk about a maintenance contract, and not really what the problem is.
Yeah. And I think that's on us as well, though, as vendors, you know, and it's back to that point I spoke about with customer lifecycle management, giving them the analytics, giving them the playbooks, the content, even the resource if need be to help get them there. So I think there's a tendency for us all as salespeople to solution. So, you know, I'm coming in to see you. Immediately I'm jumping to, right, yeah, you've got, you know, you're an SME, you've got remote environment, you need UCaaS, therefore you need Ring Central, which is actually Mitel's strategy for UCaaS. So you need UCaaS, go Ring Central. But why jump to that solution? The first thing I need to try and understand is a bit about your business, a bit about what you're trying to do. How can we help you get more agility from the technology that you've got today, or sweat that asset and get more value from it? And, you know, I think that's on us as vendors as well, to make sure that we're helping our partners to have those conversations. If we don't do that, then, you know, don't get me wrong, many of them have got customer success, very effective customer success teams today, but many of them haven't. So what we're trying to do is make sure that we can complement the ones that have. We're giving them all the information, and then obviously support the ones that haven't. So I think that education and that responsibility largely sits with the vendors as well.
No, absolutely. Darren, you've been a fantastic guest. Thanks very much for your time.
Oh, mate, it's been lovely seeing you again. Sorry it can be in person, but hopefully it will be next time.